So we'll come back to, I guess, the main purpose of today, if that wasn't actually the main purpose. The main purpose is to actually give you an update on what we've been doing in Step Change on your behalf. We've got a couple of our safety reps from the leadership team to tell you what it feels like to be inside the tent, so to speak. We have the opportunity to hear what we've been doing on helicopters, both from Chris Allen and Andrew Dettel. Chris has been leading the task group in response to the tragic events of August 23rd, and Andrew is part of the Eurocopter team here in the UK. So we'll take a pause there for coffee, but also for some questions. We'll then hear some stuff about the Size and Shape project that's ongoing and how you can play your part in that. We've got a bit of an add-in from Marathon and what they've been doing with safety reps, and really what, not just what you do within your sites, but what you can do within your community as individuals. And then we've got Susan McKenzie from the Health and Safety Executive to give us a kind of her view of where it's going, and I'm sure you can feedback as to what you expect from your regulator also. So that's kind of the bones of today. I just point out that these events are harder and harder to do and harder and harder to keep free, but thanks to Billfinger, we're able to keep the event free for you guys. The benefit is that we all get a fantastic screen scraper, which certainly we needed on Tuesday in Aberdeen, but -3 and an inch of frost on the screen. But for those of us who are from elsewhere, then it's always a novelty that we see frost, particularly from Andrew, who comes from Australia. So we'll just give a quick update as to what we've been doing on your behalf. And really, this is the Step Change goals and visions. And there are two things that are most important in this. The top one's leadership, and the bottom one's communication. So that's what we do. Everything in the middle is bound by leadership and communication. And the bit about making the UK the safest place to work, yeah, that's true. But actually what that means is we've got to carry on working together. Because even when we are the safest place to work, we've just got to go up and do it again tomorrow anyway. So we don't stop at that point. So as a vision, it's a vision that's flawed in as much as if today we're the safest part in the world, then we've got to do the same tomorrow and the day after. So it is about working together to continuously improve, regardless of where we're at, regardless of our performance. Many of you have seen this. It's in the annual update, and this is kind of how we're set up. 5 steering groups, no real change, and there will be no change going forward. The things that were important last year, this year, will be important next year, and we'll keep that theme of workforce engagement, asset integrity, human factors, competence, and obviously helicopter safety. They will remain as part of our core delivery, and what we do within each of those things will be to drive improvement. But actually, one of the most important things about Step Change, and Jake, myself, plus others, people come and speak to us and they go, why does Step Change work? How does it work? I was in Australia this year, as has Jake been at a different conference. I've been in India, and they really want to understand what we're doing within Step Change. How do we get the employers, the regulators, the workforce, and the unions in the same room to speak about safety improvement? I think Jake's comments in Australia was, well, you can do it almost everywhere in the world except from America or something. That's paraphrasing. But Australia are going to create their version of Step Change on the back of the visits that we've all had this year. So the workforce reps will have a real voice at the leadership table in Australia as a result of what we've been doing here. So it's not just about influencing the UK's performance. It's actually about bringing the world, the rest of the world, up to what we're doing. And that's a huge, huge challenge, a huge opportunity. But also, when you look at the reps in Australia, they're on the Step Change website, they're downloading the material, they're using the same stuff. They're bypassing all the management, and they're just downloading the tools, the materials, and using it day to day. They're using joined up thinking all around the world. To give us a sense of just achievement, there's only 2 entries put forward from the UK to the European Good Practice Awards, which recognises health and safety performance right across Europe. Only 2 entries got selected from the UK. Step Change's workforce engagement tool was one of them, and it was the only UK entry to get any recognition within Europe. Now, I was at the award ceremony. It was in Dublin. There was a free bar the Guinness factory. So it was a really nice award ceremony, I can assure you. But we were beaten by a dairy cooperative of farmers from Southern Ireland. We were beaten by a dairy cooperative and farmers in Southern Ireland. They get together once a month, and each month, as part of their get-together, they discuss one risk within their farming community. One risk. They do one small risk assessment once a month, and that beat trying to engage 25,000 people on an annual basis. Why? Because they kill dozens of people a year in farming. Doing that one risk assessment has the potential to save many, many lives. And it took me a little while to rein my neck back in and realise that they were doing things much, what the prize that they were paying for was much better. But what they're doing is, farming's soul working. People work, long hours away from their families and everything else, and nobody knows where they are. And they're killing, in Ireland, 40 to 50 people a year in farming. That one risk assessment has the potential of a huge impact. We're working with 25,000 people and trying to improve performance from what is actually really pretty good to even better. So when we put it into context, you understand why we came second. But that, for me, is still the greatest opportunity that we have. Where we are to date, just on workforce engagement, 51% of the offshore manned sites have done the survey. About 8,500 people have filled it in. Some really interesting information coming back. And the vast majority of the step change leadership team, anybody who has a site, anybody who can do it, has done the survey. So a real good first year of rollout. Doesn't mean to say there's more to do, and there's lots of learning to come from that. There's some interesting dynamics that senior managers seem to be more visible at a work site than an OIM, which I find quite strange, bearing in mind they come out on a chopper in a clean boiler suit once a month and walk around the park, and the OIM's there the whole time. But that might give us some indication of what we perceive as being visible and what's not. So there's some opportunity there to have a slightly different model going forward. Arguably our biggest success this year in terms of workforce engagement or involvement. We came together with HSE's OIAC-WIG, Offshore Industry Advisory Committee, Workforce Involvement Group, and the Step Change Workforce Engagement Group to run Piper 25's the one day. We developed the video, we developed the timeout, we provided an event free of charge for nearly 550 people. Huge success, universally well received. And to give you a rough idea of how far and wide the Remembering Piper video is being used, we've had feedback that NASA are now using it in some of their safety talks. That's pretty good for step change, isn't it? Pretty good for little old step change in Aberdeen when all we do is oil and gas. And NASA, are doing it. So the influence that we have and the opportunity to make a difference, not just in our own patch, but wider across the world, is huge. And that's a massive responsibility that the leadership team, the reps, and the rest of us have. But it's the opportunity to be seen as the benchmark and set the standard as to what we have to do going forward. You'll remember the 6 C's. I think if I had the benefit of reading Enough is Enough this last week. There's one letter in there that stood out, and that was talking about the silence after watching this video. No matter how many people are in the room, 500, 2, it's silent at the end of it. It's like no other safety video we've ever seen before. And that's a really important message. The video doesn't change. The challenges don't change. We still have control of work issues. We still have competency issues. We still have communication issues. Culture, there's always room for improvement. Complacency is something we must constantly fight against. And each of us has to play our part. We have to remain committed. We have to look at what each of us can do to make a difference. And, Jake and I have already spoke about Steve Walton. He did it quietly, he did it silently. Likes of myself and Jake do it slightly differently than that, but we do it with any less commitment, any less passion. But it is about playing our part. It is about making a difference. So I hope that you're using the Joined Up Thinking packs at site. 5,000 people have downloaded them. I have no idea how many people have used them, but the feedback's pretty good. Next year we're going to carry on doing the same. but I'd really like to know if you are using them. Telling me they're good is fine, and it's really nice to get good feedback. Telling me they're not good and you need something different is even better, because we can improve. So if they're not the right tool, they're not the right mechanism for delivering some engagement around a challenging topic at site, then tell us. I can assure you that we desperately want feedback. We desperately want to understand how we can be a better service. So if you're not using them, tell me why. If you are using them and they're good enough, that's fine, but tell us what we can do better. And we will do that. We'll invest the time and the money to make them better. First time I met Steve Walton was actually before I joined and started working for Step Change. I was presenting this proposal to the leadership team and was at a Step Change share fair and said, this is the model for mechanical joint competence. And Steve Walton, first thing he said to me was he was on a site where 4 people tragically lost their lives as a result of a clamp connectors not being broken properly. And I actually only just unfortunately remember that right now. So, but that was the first time I met Steve. What we've done in that space is 6,000 people have been trained. 6,000 people have gone through improved training that helps us make and break hydrocarbon mechanical joints to a much higher standard than we did previously. We've been doing this for 20 years nearly. In 20 years, 500 people achieved any form of recognised competence. In the last year, we've got nearly 1,700 people achieved recognised competence. That's a huge difference, huge impact, and a massive benefit to what we can do as individuals at site. MIST. Now this is probably the thing that we all have an opinion on. Step Change introduced MIST to industry back in 2009, and we decided that it was a good thing to have a common industry safety training. It's a belief that we're experienced and we know it all. 60,000 people have gone through it, and the product is up for review. Interestingly, the data says something different, and 36%, almost a third of people who are doing MIST, this is experienced workers, still struggle to get through the permit to work section. A third of our offshore workforce, our colleagues, still struggle to get through the basic industry training on permit to work. For me, that's just not acceptable for 2 reasons. Either the standard's wrong, which is as equally, or we're not getting that knowledge transfer. So we need to fix it. We need to fix the standard and improve it. But the other thing is that you look at it, and where's the major accident hazard piece? You look at the work that the safety reps did this year on the additional training, huge focus on understanding major accident hazard risk. And our basic safety training has no real focus on major accident hazard. Opportunity to influence and make a difference. So we're going to go down that process right now. And this is where we are. So you look at it, 17% of experienced workers take more than 7 iterations to get through MIST, the basic MIST online training. Put that into context, a third take 5 or more. A third of our offshore workforce take more than 5 attempts to get through the basic MIST course. So when we go back and we say MIST adds no value, and we know it all, the data says something entirely different. The data says a third of our people don't know it well enough. A third of our people don't understand permit to work, and a third of our people take more than 5 iterations to get through the course. The basic safety training for the whole industry. It's pretty grim, isn't it? I mean, we'd be genuinely happy to recognise that a third of the guys on the park are taking 5 times to get through MIST. Never mind all the additional safety training that you're doing. So we have to fix MIST. We have to make it more valuable, and we have to try and learn from that. On the human factor side, we've got a new tool coming, which hopefully will help you get engaged and help us understand where we're at with human factors. We've been talking about it for years. I'm sick of talking about it. You know, we talk about behavioural safety, and we give you cards, and we talk about 7 plus or minus 2, or whatever model we want to do. But when you look at human factors, it's more than just behaviour. It's how we design the plant, it's how our processes help us succeed, but it's also how we manage our resources and fatigue and everything else. This tool will help us understand, are we actually doing it or not? It's been designed by human factors experts, so it should be simple to use. And we're piloting it right now across a number of sites, both within operators and contractors, to understand what we can do. It gives you and gives the reps and the workforce a simple set of language. So if you do get a procedure or a drawing that you think is good or bad, then you can use this checklist to give you a language to feedback. So it's an enabling tool. It's not going to give you any answers, but rather than looking at a procedure and saying, this does or doesn't work, it gives you a checklist to see why it does or doesn't work. So it's a really simple set of checklists that help you and help us as individuals feed back into a process of improvement within that human factors. If the procedure doesn't work, we need language, we need feedback mechanism, rather than just the standard 2-word response to when we get a procedure that's fine. You either don't have time to read it, or it's never going to be good enough anyway. So it's trying to come up with tools that make each of us more able to provide meaningful feedback. Clearly, we're going to talk a lot about helicopters today. We've got 40 minutes on the agenda. It's been a hugely challenging year for all of us, no more so than the 4 families who tragically lost somebody on August 23rd. But when you look at what HSSG has done on behalf of industry, it's had a huge impact, not just in the UK, but also globally. Not always welcome globally. When HSSG say we're not going to fly, and people around the world go, why on earth are you doing that? Because we think it's perfectly safe. It creates a real challenge for us all. And when the Wall Street Journal is quoting what Jake and I say in HSSG, you have some sense of how far and how wide the impact of what we do is. But on the 225 thing, we really work together. We work together with Eurocopter. We work together as an industry with the reps to build a strong comms pack, a really strong comms pack. That's been used all across the world. And I know that it's being used in Northern Australia. It might not have the Step Change logo on it because they don't know who Step Change is, but they're using exactly the same material. They're using exactly the same Swiss cheese model because it helps explain why we think it was okay to do the things we do. But there's still more to do, and there'll always be more to do. And we got a really stark reminder of that earlier this year. If you look at our response to August 23rd, and I'm not going to dwell on this, but we've tried very hard to keep you informed. Now, we've been criticised for comms. We've been criticised because we've been communicating too much, and we've been criticised because we've been communicating too little. I can live with the first one. I think it's very hard to over-communicate in this space, but it's atrocious if we're under-communicating. So if there's more we can do, please tell us. And where we are in hydrocarbon performance, where we are in actually how safe is your site on a day-to-day basis. Well, we set a target back in 2010 to achieve 50%. We achieved 49%. 49%, pretty good, nearly there. But the bad news is that we're still not sharing lessons. We're still not sharing the information around what we've done well and also where we've got room for improvement. So there's a learning piece that as an industry we're still not doing particularly well. Consequence of that is actually our performance is going in the wrong direction. So we got down to 95 hydrocarbon releases from 187, 49% reduction. We're kind of moving in the wrong direction. So as an industry, we don't know why this is, but when you look at something and when you focus something, it improves. And when you nearly achieve a target, you might just go, relax. And we might have done that. And as a result of relaxing, everything's got slightly worse. Now, I find that hard to believe, that after 3 years of looking at something, things have got so markedly worse. So we need to understand it. But our performance roughly means that we have currently a 40% increase on this time last year in terms of like-for-like hydrocarbon releases. And I absolutely know that Susan McKenzie is going to talk about that, and she's already given the leadership team a piece of her opinion. It's probably the best bit, and certainly fed back that this is not acceptable performance. She sent notes to all operators to say this has to improve, and this needs to improve immediately. So the regulator is very much on top of this, as is industry. But we need to understand why our performance has got so bad. So where do we think we are? Leadership. We have a belief that just because of the performance on that last target, that our leadership has dropped off. It's kind of going in the wrong direction right now. Standards-wise, we're pretty much covering our ass. We're doing an okay job, but room for improvement. Asset integrity, well, the last slide speaks for itself. We're not managing it. We're not doing a good enough job as individuals, as organisations, or as an industry on managing asset integrity. Workforce engagement, 8,500 people completed the survey. That's 8,500 opinions. We need to listen to those and do something with it. If we don't do anything with it, that line will always be flat. It only goes to green if we actually start seeing action and improvement. Recognise hazards, competence. Well, we think we've made a contribution. What we're doing with MIST, what we're doing with MGI is certainly improving that, but there's more to do. And communication, we've been really hard on ourselves. We think communication could be improved. Now, you can tell us that today, but so we've set some pretty challenging kind of measures on where we think we are. This is our opinion. I'm sure you'll have a view as well as the day goes on, and I'm happy to speak to any of you about it. But we think there's definitely room for improvement in communication. Now, we created Twitter. We've got Twitter. We've got, 500 followers or whatever that is. We've got a Facebook page. What do we have? 500 people on our Facebook page who follow us, give us updates, everything else. Destroy the Super Pumas. Got 37,000 in a week. Step Change, providing factual information, has 500, full stop. So, for me, we're not doing something right. Maybe it's because we only provide facts, maybe it's because we're not getting involved in conjecture, but ultimately, the way in which we engage, there's room for improvement. You look at our discussion board on the website, 2 or 3 comments per month. So our key mechanism, that platform that we have to share, is not being used. And if it doesn't get used, then we'll just take it away. We'll just remove it because it's providing no value. And what we find is we spend more of our time taking off links from people in Australia and America who are trying to sell us, some fantastic whizzy safety course that's of no value. So that lateral learning, that sharing isn't happening. So please use today to tell us what more we can do to engage. I really, really need that. Where are our challenges in Step Change? Are we actually set up for success? We've got a leadership team, steering groups, work groups, and we've got a support team of 4 or 5 people. And we had arguably the busiest year we've ever had. Huge drain on resource, huge challenge, and our delivery model may not be the right model going forward. So we're looking at how we have a long-term future, how we're there to serve your interests on an ongoing basis. Everybody's busy. The industry's as busy as it's ever been, and therefore people find it difficult to show up. There's 20 less people here than this time last year in this room. Well, that's not a lot, but it's 20 less people who are taking a message back to the workforce. It's 20 less reps that are engaged. There was 70 reps down at Norwich at the WIG event, 120 here or so. So there's 1,500 reps offshore, something in that ballpark, and we get we're getting this number in the room. So there's lots of opportunity to improve participation at this level. But then we look at leadership team and everything else. In a busy industry, people find it hard to contribute. So we need to be better and more effective in that. The other thing, who's not showing up? Now, pretty much everybody has a members list or a delegate list. And we all have done this already and gone down and said, who's not here? Who's not here? Who should be here that isn't here? Who has influence? Who has opportunity to make a difference that's not doing that? And if you know somebody, give them a nudge. If you know a company, give them a nudge. And if you want a grown-up to be given a nudge, tell me, tell Jake, tell Susan, and we'll give them a nudge on your behalf. Oh, there's Susan there. So, but that's what we're here to do. We're here to work on your behalf so that you don't have a single voice, that we talk collectively and actually try and make a difference. And Constitution. Step Change is 16 years old, and it's kind of made up on, it was created on the back of a fag packet, to be honest. And through that process, it's developed, it's grown, it's been very, very organic. And actually, there's very few rules of engagement. How do you become a member? How do you not become a member? And the way in which we work professionally is just not there. The stuff you see in what we produce is great, but the back office means that me and the team spend an awful lot of time doing things that are just not required. So we need to be more formal. We need to be set up properly. We need to make sure that the unions are not there by invite. They're there by right. They're there as a fundamental part of the Step Change team, and we need to solve that because we've been talking about it far too long, and that will be fixed before the end of this year, I hope. So we're really making huge progress on that. So Step Change will become more formal, more structured, more professional, but actually it'll give you much more say. It'll give us much more opportunity to make a huge difference. And this is what we kind of think it looks like on the outside. Step Change, Oil and Gas UK, OIAC, SPE, whatever it is. We're all busy people, and we're all fighting for your time. We're all fighting for your time. We all want you to engage with us because we're the most important, we're the most special. And arguably, I would think Step Change is the most special, obviously. And what we're doing is we're pulling everybody in all sorts of directions. And you ultimately have to make a choice. We think that's ridiculous. So what we want to do is not limit the choices, but simplify where we do the work. So the work that we say we need to do gets done. Because there's an awful lot of chat, an awful lot of people in rooms meeting on a day-to-day basis. And they love it. The coffee's great and the pastries are good. But they all go away and do nothing before they meet the next time, where the coffee's great and the pastries are good. And if we're genuinely committed to making a difference, it's not about the coffees and the cake. It's about what we do in the middle to make a difference. What we do in the middle to make a difference, to make our safety in the industry better and better. And we're just not doing that well enough. Too many people turn up and are present. There are too many passengers who like to go to meetings and contribute very little. And we need to simplify the agenda, give some clarity so that the contribution that each of us can make has a real opportunity to make a difference. So this is kind of where we are. We want to simplify the agenda. We want to create much more engagement. Much more engagement, not just from the workforce at the sites, but the workforce in the boardrooms. The workforce are sitting there patting themselves on the back thinking they've done a great job. So we need to do that. And Jake's just pointed out this says lies going up the way. It clearly, it says how long and how well I now know Jake, that I know what he's thinking about down there. It probably says one of us is kind of, that's probably one beer too many. So, there we go. So, but it's about implementation. It's absolutely about implementation. It's not about creating a glossy brochure. It's about doing what it says in the glossy brochure and making a genuine difference. And it's about showing up and leading. And that's not just about leading from the top. It's about leading from within. And if you want an example of what leading from within is, go back to Steve Walton. That was somebody who led from within. Led from within day to day.